Hi and welcome to the Trading Bell Show. We have arrived right here at the chairman's office, Kiprono Kittony, the chairman for the NSE. They've had a lot of significant changes and significant developments, especially in the markets, equities, bonds. Speaking about the leadership as well, we have a new captain in town. And I want to understand from the chairman's perspective what to really expect and even the outlook for 2024. Come with me. Mr. Kittony was appointed chairman of the NSE board on July 13, 2020, and as a board member of the NSE on May 30th, 2018. He is the immediate former national chairman of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the premier business membership organization in Kenya. He's an established entrepreneur and a business leader, having served in several capacities, including being the immediate past chairman of the Media Owners Association and AAR Insurance Limited. During his 7-year tenure at the KNCCI, he was widely credited with revitalizing the organization through a series of transformative initiatives that placed the chamber at the forefront in terms of shaping national trade and general economic policy. He serves as the chair of the Credit Info CRB Kenya Limited, MTech Limited and Radio Africa Group, which he co-founded in 2000. He sits on the Advisory Council of the International Fund for Health in Africa, an Amsterdam-based private equity fund, and is one of the 2 representatives from Africa in the Global Council of the World Chambers Federation. Mr. Kittony holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree and a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Nairobi and a Global Executive MBA from the United States International University. Kiprono Kittony, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mina.
Excellent.
Yes.
Glad to have you. And, you sit at a very pivotal seat, if I may call it that, being the chairman of the NSE, and a lot of economists look at how the stock markets really do to evaluate the economy. And I wanted you to paint a picture for us on how are we doing right here in Kenya, based on your perspective.
Thank you very much. I think firstly that this show is timely, it is pertinent, it is relevant to the times that we are in. Mm-hmm. And like you rightly said, many people use the performance of the stock exchange as a barometer of economic performance in the country, and that is the right thing to do. Absolutely. The NSE, like other markets, are a bellwether. Mm-hmm. They're an indicator of the macroeconomic fundamentals of the country. Mm-hmm. And a year ago, when I spoke on media about the performance of the market, I told people that markets ebb and markets flow. That is why you have a bull run and a bear run. Mm-hmm. And that is the reason why, any sophisticated investor like Warren Buffett and the likes globally always take a long-term position in investing, as opposed to a short in and out, strategy. We have people who look at the market holistically, knowing that there will be times when the market performs well and other times it doesn't perform well. Mm-hmm. And gladly, the first quarter of this year has seen a significant upswing in the market performance of Kenya. If you look at the macroeconomic fundamentals of our country, the shilling is doing very well. In fact, has been rated the best performing currency in sub-Saharan Africa, with about 26 percentage base points against the US dollar gain year to date, which is quite a feat. Right. And I want to commend the managers of our macroeconomic fundamentals at the National Treasury for doing a good job in doing that. Yeah. Earlier this year, there was a lot of pessimism about the ability of Kenya to meet its Eurobond obligation. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we were able to as a country, to miss out on the list of countries that have defaulted says a lot about our ability to manage macroeconomic affairs. So we've seen some key factors this year. We've seen a stabilization of the shilling against the dollar. Mm-hmm. We've seen the Eurobond being partially settled by the bond that was floated a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. We've seen a baseline inflation also decline quite significantly. Mm-hmm. The consumer price index across the country today speaks to an economy that is in recovery. Okay. So I'm quite glad and I'm optimistic that the future holds a lot for us.
Absolutely. Still in the same breath, I have seen the bond market, as you've mentioned, go up. The indices as well have really risen, especially in the last 3 months. I don't know how Q1 really, it came with a blessing, I think, to the market. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to understand from your perspective, what have you observed from the investor's perspective, really? How is their perception now towards the country and investing?
There is a very strong positive sentiment, and you know that markets are driven by sentiments.
Right.
Investors are always shy and quite risk averse when they see that the macroeconomic fundamentals are not in order. But if you look at the occurrences of the recent past, I mean, if you look at the Nairobi All Share Index, if you look at the NSE 25 Share Index, the NSE 10 Index, they've all had a rise of between 16 and 26%. All the key indices are showing a significant growth. We've also seen investor wealth increase from about 1.46 trillion to north of 1.78 trillion in the first quarter of this year. So we've seen, you know, a burgeoning of the share values in the market. Key, you know, counters like KCB, like Safaricom and Equity Bank have seen very, very significant growth, and that also reflects shareholder wealth growth. And you know, last 2 weeks ago, we had the Russell Index move Kenya from restricted to pass, which is a very, very significant development, because you see what that essentially means is that the fear of people not being able to repatriate either their dividends or the proceeds from their sale of shares no longer exists. And that is a big commendation to the Central Bank of Kenya, because dollars are now available. The value of the shilling against the dollar is also quite stable. And in my opinion, we have many of the ducks are in line, and I'm confident that we'll close the year on a stronger note. Talking about bonds, because you alluded to bonds, it is instructive to note that year to date we are at about 300 billion shillings plus in traded volumes, compared to 436 billion traded bonds the whole of last year. So we are predicting that by half of this year we should have crossed the 500 billion line, which means that by the middle of this year we should have done more trading in bonds than we did in the whole of last year. And I would like to suggest that we will actually achieve a bond turnover north of 1 trillion shillings this year.
Wow, that's quite optimistic, and thanks so much for that. What would be, in a simple sentence, your word to investors who are watching and really looking forward to hear from what the chairman will say in terms of investing right here?
One of the things that we are looking forward to in the next quarter is the resolution of the court case that blocked the privatization or the listing of state-owned enterprises to come to the market. I have said it many times, and I repeat again, that the funds that are chasing investable assets are far more than the assets that are available to invest in. So in Kenya, what we have is a supply side constraint, because we don't have enough counters in our equities. Our bond market is growing very robustly, but I do think that we are now in the process of also formulating a commodities exchange. We need more products, more investable products. We need companies that are scalable, that are listable, to consider listing, so they can also raise capital for their expansion through the exchange. We would like the state to come forward with a state-owned enterprise listing program. And my advice is that if you haven't opened a CDS account and began trading on the stock exchange, the time is now. Because when the prices go too high, then of course you'll have missed the opportunity. And you see, we need to do a lot of capacity building on investor sophistication and trading capability, because we want people to take a long-term view, not to hold positions. You see, the generation of our parents and our grandparents, many of them looked at the purchase of shares like opening a bank account. But we would like to teach people how to buy low, sell high, trade their shares. So you move from counter to counter and find the arbitrage in that activity.
You're right.
Yes.
So, Chairman, when you took the helm, you're quite optimistic about really seeing companies come in and list. And you've had quite a number and a share of hurdles, especially these court cases that you've hoped resolutions will come by. But giving credit to the current government, I've seen you host the president severally, and looks like it's going to really be optimistic. I wanted you to paint a picture to us. What would happen if this resolution comes in? We have some of these public companies come in, and of course the effort that is coming from on the private companies. What would you see really looking down at 2024 and moving on?
I have 2 more years at the helm of the NSE.
Absolutely.
And it is my hope that these 2 years will be marked by a lot more listings, will be marked by a revolutionizing of the bond market, and to see a market that is probably 4 times the size that we have today.
Wow.
I would love to see a lot more regional collaboration. If we look at the exchanges in Dar es Salaam, in Kigali, and in Kampala, combined with our exchange here, one of the things that COVID proved to us is that we are a technological platform that allows for investors to realize value and for business owners to be able to raise capital. So there's no reason why we can't have a much bigger regional play. Last week we had a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary of the National Treasury, and we have agreed that we will go on a roadshow in these countries as well. Talk to investors to see where they can list their companies in Nairobi and cross-list them back in the markets where they come from. There's no point of dividing the cake too much. And I also see, a big resurgence in the capital markets. I'd like us to, also look at the work that is being done by the Capital Markets Roundtable that is led by the chairman of the Capital Markets Authority, and all the stakeholders are in there. We are burning the midnight oil to see whether we can provide solutions to national issues. For example, the affordable housing program. We think that we can provide interesting and innovative solutions of fundraising for government through the exchange. We also would like to see a thriving and active commodities exchange that is operating here. We would like to see owners of scalable listable companies come to market. We would like to see companies that are in the Ibuka program graduate into the main market segments. So I think all these things are possible. What we need is a stable macroeconomic situation. We need companies to be profitable. We need the confidence of the government. We need the regulators to be working with us in coming up with the innovative solutions that we think could definitely turn the tide, not just for Kenya, but for the region.
I'm curious, this is just a curious question. When you look at the NSE and looking at the 2 years to come by, what's keeping you awake?
I would really want to see a situation where our portfolio of bonds and equities are equally balanced. When I took over, it was 50-50. Now it is about 65-35 in favor of fixed income securities vis-a-vis equities, and I'd like to see a burgeoning of the equities counter. What keeps me awake, of course, is also still working with government to see that we have a commodities exchange that is thriving. We've been having quite a few meetings to work on the execution of that. I would also want to see a situation where we talk to retail investors in this country. We have the Dozika app that we've been collaborating with Safaricom. We need to really democratize the ownership of shares. The Kenya Kwanza administration has been very, very insistent on us taking a bottom-up approach. And one of the ways that we can do that is by educating the public about how to open CDS accounts and how to participate in trading on an active basis. And finally, of course, we would want to see with the state-owned enterprise listings, companies that are better governed. If you look at companies like Kengen, for example, Kengen is a company that is predominantly government-owned. The governance of that company, its profitability, its track record, its innovation, in my opinion, are largely because it's a listed company that is de-risked and depoliticized and can exist and fulfill the mandate on behalf of its shareholders, including the government.
Great. Let's talk about your key appointment. You have brought in a new captain, that's a chief executive in the house for the NSE, Frank Mwiti. And I just wanted to know your board expectations, because you're in charge of this, and what shareholders can see towards this transition.
Firstly, I want to congratulate Frank Mwiti, because the process that we ran was highly competitive. For a period of 6 months, we went on a jobs on a search. We hired a professional consulting company, human resource headhunting company, to lead that process, and we worked through 3 or 4 shortlists. And finally, we had the penultimate moment when we had 6 candidates before us. And Frank Mwiti narrowly was the top of the pack. And the pedigree that I think we have been able to attract bodes well for the future of the exchange. One of the things that the board determined is that it cannot be business as usual. We would like to see an exchange with a person who's very strong in business development, who has multi-jurisdictional experience. And if you look at Frank Mwiti's CV, he comes from a very, very strong background in capital markets in the United Kingdom, He also has a very strong strategy and accounting background, and all those skill sets I think would be very useful. I mean, his immediate former role is as a strategy director for regional expansion for Ernst & Young.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm glad that we were able to persuade him that though he had to make some sacrifices in terms of remuneration and others, he has a role now that he could really use to show Kenya the true value of his capabilities.
Wow.
Yes.
We'll really look forward and wish him well.
I am also really looking forward. We are actually going on a roadshow in the United Kingdom later this month where we'll be talking to investors.
Yes.
And I'm sure that when he starts to substantively take over that position on May the 2nd, that we will hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And I'm certain that within the next 6 months we shall see significant changes. But having said that, I want to use this platform to really commend and congratulate Jeffrey Odundo, who had a sterling career run as the CEO of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and for the work that he did also for the African exchanges. Yes.
Wow. Sure enough. As we come to a close of the conversation, I'd like you to paint a picture of the outlook, what you see, especially this year, and any key market development expectations within this year and moving forward.
Okay. First of all, you know that the GDP is in growth.
Yeah.
The projection is that we will have a 5.2% GDP growth this year. The GDP growth is not just limited to Kenya, but it's also a regional factor. There's a regional dynamic to it, and I am convinced that also with the good rains that we are experiencing in most parts of the country, that we are going to have a year when we don't have issues on food security, so there'll be less pressure on the dollar reserves that we have as a country.
Yeah.
The reduction of fossil fuel prices globally. I mean, if we look last week, the cost of Marban oil reduced in all the major oil exporting countries, and that in itself will also lead to a reduction in consumer prices, and the inflationary trend will reduce. I would like to see a situation where enterprise can also be incentivized to create more employment. I think there's a big issue with many companies today because many organizations are still downscaling their employment, and we need to figure out ways in which the government can come up with an economic stimulus program to allow enterprise to continue employing as they still meet their tax burdens. But I do hope, and I am confident that this is a year that we will see the turn of the tide, and I'm really, really grateful for what the President and the leadership of Kenya Kwanza have done in turning things around, and we just need that now to trickle into people at the bottom of the pyramid also having money in their pockets.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Before I end, by the way, I saw you have some firm and you have some good coffee that you have there. Am I going to taste some today?
I will give you some in a moment. Yes, happy to do that. And I'd like to invite you there to see what we do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, we can make a date.
Yes, asante sana.
There you have it. That's the Chairman, Kiprono Kittony, very optimistic on all ends, including even the leadership and what is expected for you. And he says this, if you don't have a CBS account, it's your time now, you better. Thank you so much for your time. I leave you now with the market.